Hello, and welcome back to another tips and tricks for Sons of the Forest. Today we're going to talk about base defences and go through the different options you have to protect your base from aggro. The first thing we will look at is probably the most important, I think, in my mind, and that is base walls. Building base walls is pretty straightforward. Grab yourself some logs, find a spot on the ground until you see a circle. Left click and drop the fence post. The second one, do the same. Now that we've put two together, this is where the interesting stuff actually starts. If you look at the ground, you'll see a dotted circle with a straight line. That will then indicate that you're connecting the fence post to the one that's previously. So here we have 4 pieces that are all connected. Go and grab a few more. And there you have it. A simple fence. But to make it worthwhile as a base defense, we need one more modification, and that is to go through and at the top of each of the poles, turn them into points. As you approach the top of the point, you'll see a peak, dotted red lines, and that will indicate that you can sharpen those pieces into sharpened fence posts. There we go. Sometimes, like you see now, you see a dotted line along the top of the post. That indicates that we don't quite have enough pieces here for it to recognize that this is part of that fence. So you can do 2 things here. You can grab another pole and drop it in, at which point it will recognize that this is part of the fence. Or you can just pick up that piece and replace it. Fence posts, when you pick them up, you get all of the materials back, so it goes back to a standard pole, and then you can sharpen it again. That's step 1. Step 2 is you can optionally turn this into a gate. You need a minimum of 5 poles for this to happen. And when you approach the fence itself, you see that diagonal white line. Click. That's now turned this piece into a gate, which you can then open, close by pointing at the top part of that diagonal line. If you want to undo this this change, just point towards the diagonal line, press C, and that will pop out the post for you. Okay, that's step 1. That's probably the most important. It's the most robust defense that you can have. And it's probably the best place to get started. The next thing you can do is you can create spiked poles that you can use to repel attackers on your base. To do this, it's pretty straightforward. Grab yourself some sticks. Point towards the ground where you want to create these spiked defenses, and then right click to change from the dotted lines, which indicate creating a fire, to a small circular dotted outline. Left click and place down the stick into the ground. There we go, we've just done 2 of them. The next part is to grab your axe, approach the top of the pole until you see that moving curved arrow, and then left click, and that will sharpen the stick into something that can be used for defensive. These are okay as they are, but they're fairly fragile. The next thing you want to do is grab a large rock, look at the base of the stick, and place 3 large stones. That then essentially creates a kind of reinforced spike that's much more durable against attackers and won't break so easily. This works on the ground. But as you can see here, you can also place them on curved surfaces. So we're going to go through how to create this in a second. You can do this with quarter pole pieces or half pole pieces, as you see here. These are the quarter ones, and there's a half one here. To do this, it's pretty straightforward. Let's grab ourselves a half pole piece, drop it in the ground, and we'll get another one. Grab that piece. Now from the first pole, if you look at the base and then start moving backwards, you'll see that it goes from a dotted red circle to a white circle with a line connecting to the previous pole. Drop this down. And that basically means that you are, these poles are exactly one full length apart. So if you go and grab a full pole now. Oh, there was the whole base. There we go. That's one full length apart. Now, you can optionally put this bar on the top, but you don't necessarily need to. What you can do is point towards the top of the pole until you see the down-facing arrow to create a pole at an angle. And with another piece. Repeat the process on this side, and then you have two parallel pieces. And then what we can do is fill in this gap. Now you want to make sure that you're creating a flat surface rather than stairs. This is the indicator for stairs. This is the indicator for a flat surface. Split the log and drop it. Grab another piece. You can leave it at just 2 if you want, but I prefer to use 4. You can go all the way up, but you're using more resources, and this is usually enough to provide a decent deterrent to anything attacking your base. So that's the first part. The next thing you want to do is you want to grab this alpha stick and essentially repeat the same process that we did just now on the ground. Point the circle towards the surface, left click, and that will then place the stick. Now you can place these as dense as you would like. I usually start with kind of like 3 sticks on the first plank, and then 2 on the one above. But before we do the one above, I'm going to go to the other side, jump up, grab our axe, sharpen these pieces. Grab some large stones and turn them into reinforced stones. The reason for this is that the sticks on their own without the stones are fairly fragile, and so it's pretty easy for you to bump into them and to knock them down. Go back to our sticks, and then repeat this process into leaving the sticks through the gaps that we had from the earlier one. It can be pretty tricky to see. Axe. There you go. And then keep on doing that up as much as you want. You know, the more sticks you have, the more defense that you actually have, but the more that you also have to maintain. Here you can see what I've done a similar one here. The only key difference between this platform, this defensive platform, and the one that we've just been working on is that here I'm using half a log, whereas here I'm using quarter logs. I find the half logs work a bit better than the quarter logs, especially against some of the mobs that jump fairly high. But if you repeat this process kind of all the way up on these planks here, you have a pretty robust defense. The other thing that you can do is you can use some of the traps that you find in the construction book to provide an extra level of security at the back of these traps. You have two that you can see here. You have the Bone Maker trap, or you have the Fly Swatter trap. The main difference is that the Bone Maker trap uses a bottle of vodka and creates flame, so it can burn any victims that are caught in it, but it's more expensive to create. I usually settle for the Fly Swatters. Orient the Fly Swatter at the back of this construction, like this, and then to construct it. All it needs is stones and sticks. Now you can set these off yourself, but they don't hurt you that much. Calvin can also trigger the traps. Let's give you an example here. Look at my health. Was it full? Trigger the trap. No damage. Once the trap has been triggered, you can reset it by using the E button, and that will rearm the trap itself. Those traps are pretty good against most of the attackers, although the more serious demons, it doesn't hurt, it hurts them, but it doesn't kind of, it's not a one-hit wonder. But against cannibals, it's pretty good. It will essentially kind of slice them into cubes, and if they step on the trap, then they're pretty much unfunctional. These traps are also pretty good against wildlife. So if you put them near where deers are running, it will take a deer out, as well as squirrels and that sort of stuff. So it's a great way to kind of get meat without kind of running around after deers. So that's it. That's the basics. I won't create. No, I can create actually. I can create the other trap as well. The Bone Maker, so you can see what it looks like. Stone. I've got leaves. I've got vodka. What am I missing? Sticks. Sticks. Calvin's been pretty busy stacking things up for me. There you go. I'm not going to step on this trap because this trap will harm you. Not the trap itself, but the vodka, when it explodes and you get a kind of a fireball, it does fire damage. So yeah, I'd rather not. If that's okay. They're okay. I do use them now and then, but sometimes just in a corner and more sparingly than anything else. Cool. So thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please do like the video and subscribe if you would like to see future content updates from me. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.